All right, a very successful week of recruiting in the books for Texas football. We're here to recap signing day and more this week for the Longhorns. What a week it was. Here with Horns 24/7 recruiting analysts Hank South and Jordan Scruggs. Guys, appreciate you being here with us. First of all, we'll start with the high school rank. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 2024 class by the numbers. Number 3 overall class by 24/7 Sports. Number 3 class in the SEC. The Longhorns get 4 stars. 16 4 stars, 3 3 stars with a 92.33 average player rating. That's good for a 4-star rating. On average, 18 out of the 23 commits are early enrollees in this class, and it's the third straight top 5 class for Steve Sarkisian at Texas. So, fellas, my first question for you is, it seems like there is a lot to like here. So when you look at this class from top to bottom, what is it that you really like? And are there maybe some nitpicky areas where you think this staff could have done better?
Yeah, there's a lot to like about this class. Like you mentioned, used top to bottom. Texas stuck to their guns with their top targets. Out of the summer, I think Texas was in the 20s, if not a little bit lower, in the recruiting rankings. And everyone's wondering, when is Texas going to make that run? What's going on? And, the staff just stuck with it, added guys like Brandon Baker, Ryan Wingo, Xavier Filsamy, and Colin Simmons coming into the fall and got it done and really picked up steam when they needed to towards the early signing period, finishing number 3. So again, top to bottom, they addressed their needs. Wide receiver, defensive back. Those are 2 areas they needed to, be strong in 2024. And they did exactly that. I mean, you could make the argument defensive back is the strongest secondary class in the country. I don't think there is much argument there. Wide receiver, same thing with guys like Ryan Wingo not flipping Aaron Butler, but getting Aaron Butler, after he decommitted from Colorado in recent weeks, to go along with Freddie Dubose and Parker Livingston. So, overall, Steve Sarkisian talks about, going into the SEC, you want to be big up front, speed on the perimeter. That's exactly what this class is. If there was a critique, and I think I would say more from a number standpoint than it is quality of player, I think offensive line, they have 3 guys in the class. I think the hope was probably 4. They recruited other guys into the signing period, but they finished with 3. We'll see if they address it in the portal. I don't think they would unless it was kind of a can't miss type guy. But I think Texas is thrilled with having Brandon Baker, who could be a guy that competes for that right tackle spot this spring, and future center in Daniel Cruz, and then really strong interior guy in Nate Kibble. So overall, really strong effort.
Yeah, pretty much hit it on the head right there, Hank. I guess my critique would be at the tight end position. They only signed 1 tight end, and Langham Creek's Jordan Washington out of Houston. Going into this cycle, they originally wanted to take 2, just like last cycle when they got Spencer Shannon and Will Randall. This cycle, they're obviously only getting 1 with Jordan. So my critique is, that they're not leaving with 2. The guys they missed out on, they really wanted were Reiner Swanson and Elijah Lofton. But, Sark has made it very clear that they never want to feel like they're reaching for someone, and they only want to take people that they think are really going to add to the team and contribute. And that's exactly what Jordan Washington is. And he's more of a pass-catching type, whereas Spencer Shane and Will Randall, the 2 signings from last year, are more blocker types. So that said, this is probably, if you're only getting 1 tight end, this is the best option to go through with. But, that's my one critique.
So, guys, in the early signing period preview, we talked about a couple of guys who could probably have an early impact on this team in their freshman seasons. And, the big names popped up: Ryan Wingo, Xavier Filsamy. When you look at the rest of this class, who is a kid and a player who is not being talked about a lot that come, whether it be the spring, if they're the early enrollees, if they're in the early enrollee crowd, or maybe even later on into the summer, who's a guy that you think is going to pop up, not just on the coaches' radars, but on fans' radars, and maybe earn a spot in the starting rotation that you maybe wouldn't expect right now?
Yeah, I think one guy to keep an eye on, and he's not going to early enroll, so maybe that could factor into potentially seeing the field early, but I think we'll have a really strong career, and we look back as, wow, this guy was, a lot better than we anticipated, is Santana Wilson, the cornerback from Arizona. I just love the fact that, he's an NFL legacy. His dad was an all-pro safety in the NFL, and this is what Sark talked about on Wednesday in his signing day conference. And he's a versatile kid. He has high football IQ. Again, he has NFL bloodlines. He knows the game. He's very coachable. I've spoken to his coach at Desert Mountain a couple times, and I think it's am I right? Desert Mountain. one of those schools between him and Christian Clark. I get them mixed up. All he talks about is how great of a kid he is and coachable and, willing to do whatever it is for the team. So I think he's a guy that when he does get on campus in the summer could really excel and make an impact on this roster sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm kind of cheating here because he is in our top 247, but I'm rolling with Wardell Mack from New Orleans. I think it's a really underrated get. Texas, not only did they flip him from Florida, but they also kept him from flipping to Florida State and or the home state LSU, who's very much applying pressure there at the end. I like Wardell Mack as a prospect because he's just above 6 foot, but he has damn near a plus 12 wingspan, so he's super long. He can press. He can play literally any position in the secondary. He's athletic enough to do it all. Another thing that really intrigues me about him is most of his high school snaps came at quarterback. He doesn't have a ton of experience playing the defensive back position. So that said, his trajectory goes like this. And there are so many tools there to work with, the length, the athleticism, and also the football IQ. Playing quarterback like that helps you on the defensive side of the ball. So I think his ceiling is super high, and I just feel like he's someone who isn't getting talked about enough. And, with the other big names in the class, it makes sense why he could maybe fall behind the curtain a little bit. But, I just wanted to show him some love and talk about Wardell Mack right there.
All right, and fellas, with the early signing period, one of the things that stood out to me was what happened last night. We'll get to that in a second. Not a lot of drama, really, I would say, overall for this class. Really, the only drama, I guess you could call it, would be Aaron Hampton flipping to Alabama, but we had that at Horns 24/7. We were expecting that a couple days prior. So Steve Sarkisian and company recover by going to Calabasas, California, and they get the commitment of Aaron Butler, a 4-star wide receiver, last night. His player comp, by the way, is Stephon Diggs, so a lot to be excited about there. But what fascinated me about his recruitment is Texas only offered him a week or two ago, and he signed without even visiting campus. I think that's just astonishing. So, number one question for you guys is that common? And two, what does that say about the tenacity of this recruiting staff to go and get a guy who hasn't even visited campus and get him to sign and sell him enough on what you're building to make him a part of this class?
Yeah, it's not common. I think that it was common in 2021 when we were under a year-long dead period and kids couldn't actually take visits during COVID. So a lot of that signing class never took visits. But yeah, nowadays when you do have those opportunities to get on campus, it didn't happen. I know he visited Washington, he visited Arizona. He was committed to Colorado, he was committed to USC. So it's not like he's foreign to taking these visits and seeing other schools and knowing what's out there. But decided on Texas. Texas went in home with him earlier in December. He got the offer. And they really started to apply pressure. Again, I think this is kind of a testament to the health of the program. I think with Aaron Butler, and I was talking to Greg Biggins about this, he's really big on brand. He knows that Texas is, one of the premier brands in college football. And he knows, the opportunities in Austin, wearing burnt orange, what that can bring him just for himself with those kind of opportunities. And the fact that, again, Texas is on an upward trajectory. They need wide receivers in this class. They have Matthew Golden, they have Ryan Wingo, they have those other guys. But again, there's going to be opportunities for guys to come in and rotate in and make a name for themselves. So I think all that kind of culminated together. Obviously Washington has a lot to sell for wide receivers. They have, 3 of the best guys in the country as well. But I think just the, combo of everything Texas offers, I think Chris Jackson with his NFL background, I think that helps a lot too with a lot of these kids. I think that helped with Ryan Wingo and Matthew Golden as well. So I think that was a big deal. And, obviously Sark has pretty strong West Coast ties. And so does Chris Jackson. He's from the West Coast as well. So I think all that kind of tied together is what really kind of sold Aaron Butler on Texas and made him feel comfortable with making that decision sight unseen.
All right, so with the early signing period now behind us, they get Aaron Butler at the buzzer. The attention turns to the February window. Guys, where do you see this staff turning their attention to? Who are some guys that Texas can pursue, and where's kind of the temperature on those recruitments? How do you like Texas's chances right now?
Yeah, one guy we're going to keep an eye on, I think, as a position group as a whole is defensive line. They got 3 guys, I think guys that are really solid candidates to be kind of that Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy type development track, especially particularly with DeAndre Robinson. But, I think there's a lot to like about Alex January and Melvin Hills as well with, their backgrounds. But I think that's still an area, I think Texas would like to add more. We've seen that with kind of their late pushes on guys that are recruiting. And one name I'm watching into February is Dominic McKinley. He's the Texas A&M defensive line pledge, a guy that, back in the summer, it was, trending towards Texas. Texas A&M made a late push. We're able to get him on board in early September. And, he still considers himself a Texas A&M commit, but, obviously we've seen Jimbo Fisher go out, Elijah Robinson moved on to Syracuse, the defensive line coach, which I think was kind of the final straw. Dominic McKinley hasn't said that. I think talking to people around his recruitment, that's kind of the feeling. And so, I think this is one that, come January, we're going to see Texas battling it out with LSU. I think he has a visit set to Tennessee. So I could see some other schools getting into the picture as well. But I think, if it's not A&M, I think LSU and Texas probably pose the biggest threats to get Dominic McKinley. And my crystal ball is actually still on Texas. I never changed it off of Texas, even when he committed to A&M, just because I felt this staff was going to keep after him, and they have. So, he did not sign on during the early signing window. So that's going to, it's fair game now going into February, and he'll be one we're tracking closely.
Yeah, the guys I'll hit on, Terry Bussey from Timpson, 5-star athlete committed to Texas A&M. He's been committed to A&M since, I believe, September. He did not sign in the early signing period. He will not be an early enrollee. He'll be at his school of choice in June. He recently played in the 2A Division I state championship game Wednesday of this past week, and Horns 24/7 is able to talk with him after. He did say he's looking to take some visits between now and February. The schools he'd like to go see are USC, Alabama, LSU, and A&M. He's been to all those schools before except for USC. Texas was not mentioned, but, a player of this caliber waiting until February. Texas was somewhat involved in the summer. I wouldn't say they were ever a true contender for him, but I am expecting them to circle back on Terry Bussey. He's a really special prospect. Again, 5-star, our number one athlete in America, and the only person to ever win Dave Campbell's Mr. Texas Football as a junior that isn't named Kyler Murray. So the definition of an elite prospect with Terry Bussey, and he's someone I expect them to at least kick the tires on, in these next few weeks leading up to the regular signing day. The other prospect is Alex Foster from Mississippi, right now committed to Baylor University. He's been committed to Baylor since the summer. Some big-time programs like Texas and even Georgia have come along. The Bulldogs haven't offered, but Texas has. He's already taken an official visit to Texas along with an unofficial visit to Texas he took weeks before the official. We think Texas is in a good spot for him right now, but there are a lot of moving parts. With Dominic McKinley, there's some moving parts at the end of the regular signing period with Dalen Evans there. So it's a pretty fluid situation with Alex Foster, but he's pushing it to February, so, that's a guy we have to watch up until February.
All right, and last one here for you guys. We're going to talk a little bit of transfer portal, so we'll finish there. Earlier today, Texas finally gets the commitment from UTSA edge Trey Moore. Moore picks the Longhorns over the Alabama Crimson Tide. Jordan, this has been a recruitment that you have been all over from start to finish, and really in the transfer portal too. Longhorns add Matthew Golden, Andrew Makuba to those ranks as well. What do you make of the mixing that Texas has done with adding the transfer portal guys into positions of need to get experience and bringing in elite high school talent to now build an overall really solid class?
Yeah, Sark's basically done a master class of literally what you just said, stacking elite high school talent while also recruiting the portal, but not reaching in the portal. They never want to take anyone out of the portal they don't feel is a culture fit to the program, but also someone who, is good enough to help the program. And they were able to get all of that with their 3 additions with Andrew Makuba, Matthew Golden, and Trey Moore. They love Matthew Golden out of high school. He was committed to TCU for a long time. Then Gary Patterson was fired, ended up opening it up, and they weren't able to get it done. He ended up signing with Houston, and that's where he's balled out for the last 2 years. And with their coaching changes, again affecting Matthew Golden's career, he decided to enter the portal. And Texas was a landing spot. They made it very clear with him they would do anything it takes to get him, and that he was the number one wide receiver, and he appreciated that. Ended up changing his plans from visiting Louisville to visiting Texas, and while he was on that visit to Texas, he ended up committing on the visit, and things just moved pretty quickly there. Drew Makuba, he's another local guy, or not local guy, I guess, with Matthew Golden, but Drew Makuba is local, growing up on the east side, attending Austin OBJ High School. Out of high school, he picked Clemson over LSU. Texas really wasn't involved there. That was Tom Herman, Texas. And he's balled out at Clemson for 3 years, and now he wants to come back home for his final year. And, that's what he did. This is a guy who would have been drafted in April. This is a guy who was the first true freshman defensive back to start at Clemson since the 1970s. This is a special player, and out of high school, he was a special prospect as well and is ranked like one. He's going to be an instant impact guy. He can play anything in the secondary at Texas. And, he's looking to bolster his NFL draft. His NFL draft stock will also, riding out with hopefully a championship, getting compensated for it, and name, image, and likeness will also be at home in his hometown. Trey Moore, on the other hand, that one, it seemed like it was moving pretty quickly. About a week into the portal, I had a source tell me it was pretty much a done deal to Texas. I went ahead and put in a crystal ball. He ended up scheduling a few more visits. Originally, it was Ohio State. Ended up switching that one to go see Alabama, not this weekend, but the weekend prior, December 15th through the 17th. Alabama made a very real push. I'm not sure who the player is, but there is a player on Alabama's roster that Trey Moore is actually, I was told, is very close with, and that played an element as well on the visit there as well. And, they made a late push, but ultimately Trey Moore grew up rooting for Texas, and the people that taught him that was his dad and his mom, the rest of his family. They also grew up rooting for Texas, and they raised their son to root for Texas. So it was 50-50 the days leading up to Trey Moore picking Texas, but ultimately my source, he thought it would be Texas with the fandom element of growing up as Texas fans. And, I rode with the crystal ball pick, and, we're here now. He's committed to Texas. And, with that said, Texas now has 3 transfer portal commits, not a ton. You look at schools around the country, they have a higher quantity, but the quality at Texas is higher. Of those 3 commits, they have the highest average rating out of anyone in America. The only person that's higher is Georgia, and they have Texas beat by 0.36. Texas' average rating is 92.67. Georgia has Texas beat by 0.33. Georgia's average rating is 93. So that said, Texas, they're probably not done in the portal, but as it stands right now, this is, pretty much as good a haul as you'll be able to find. So, I really love what Sark has done in his 3 years. He's been just kind of really special with roster management, program management, and constructing the future of this program and the trajectory. And while I think he's done a good job his first 3 years, I think this is by far the best job he's done so far of not only combining high school talent, but, combining it with 3 guys from the portal. And again, while it's not much, that's a really potent punch from the portal. And, this is just a damn good job through and through from top to bottom from the whole staff.